Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades, got a special program for you today, joined by a most special guest, George Farmer. George, I'm pleased to have you join Rules for Retrogrades. I've wanted to have you on the show for a long time, and we've nearly crossed paths several times, and it was a joy to shoot the bull around with you a little bit before we went live. Now, welcome to Rules for Retrogrades. Thanks for coming on with me.
Hey Tim, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
A fellow brother in Christ who also, we found out the other day by phone, also calls Michael Knowles MK Ultra. Why, George? This is my first interview question for you. Why has this nickname for Michael Knowles not gained more steam? MK Ultra. It's the dopest nickname ever.
He's never given it any traction. You know,
He hasn't.
he needs to get out there and start using it himself. That's the problem.
I
But
know.
he's it would be perfect for him. He is MK Ultra. That is the thing. He is MK Ultra, and it's just like we've completely failed to capitalize on this perfect nickname for him.
It's so perfect. It's like I found out that my favorite TV show is Stranger Things. I found out that it was originally going to be called Project Montauk, and it's got all these connections to MK Ultra. And yeah, when I first started calling him that, I was hoping it was just like you said that our mutual friend Knowles would be like, "Oh, I didn't know George Farmer was in the background calling him MK Ultra." I was hoping he'd be like, "Oh, my friend Tim Gordon, this Catholic guy that you guys know, he's been on the show once or twice. Like he calls me MK Ultra, and that sounds kind of dope. So I'm going to use that." And he just never leaned into it. Like,
Yeah.
Michael, come on, baby, let's do it.
Yeah. It's Michael is not one for change. You know, like I think that's probably true, and I think he'd probably defend that as well. So anything which is too revolutionary is instantly thrown out of the door. So he's probably like, nah, this is a bit too, contemporary for me. Like I'm thinking MK as in, like medieval knight or something like that. He probably think it sounds something completely different than it does for, a 20th century psyop.
Yeah, like a knight who defended a Catholic lady named Mary Catherine or something.
Yeah.
Not that we're gonna call him Mary Catherine, but
MK Ultra, of course. You're referring to the Marian apparition in Poland in 1372. Of
yeah,
course, that's
exactly.
exactly what I was referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um,
Michael is one of my favorite people. I will say that. He is just fantastic guy. It's so funny, like talking to people about like some I've definitely had people come up to me in the past and be like, Michael, like what's he like in real life? And is it just he seems so nice and everything, and but like what's his perception on is he more down to earth or is he more kind of pessimistic about the world and everything? And I'm like, no, he is one of the few people you can say, and that's I would actually say that like, my wife is one of them as well. Like Tucker is one of them too. It's just like these are people who are 100% exactly the same off the camera as they are on the camera. They don't change.
that
And
okay, so
he's
this is
just such a great guy.
yeah, he's one of my favorite people too, and absolutely, I had a friend who'd been called a racial slur, and he didn't. He bought the guy a beer in a little place in Idaho, and he said, "I've been called worse things by better men," and he just doesn't care. Like, I would say that Mike, when talking about Michael Knowles, he's so exactly what you see is what you get, that it contrasts so sharply with I've seen more micro celebrity, particularly in the Catholic world, it's full of micro celebrity, more micro celebrity go to people's heads 100 times faster than the kind of real celebrity that he's enjoyed over the last 5 years, expansion of his name and all that. And it's true, but
Yeah.
absolutely.
He's also
Anyway,
one of the few people, just to finish on this, he's also one of the few people. It is entertaining to see that he is probably like attacked more vigorously than all. I mean, he's definitely in the top kind of five most attacked conservative celebrities in America, and yet he is the nicest guy. Like it always happens to him. This is what I always say to him. I'm like, Michael, only you could be burned in effigy at a university. Like only you could this could happen to you. Like only you could be banned from Fox News for talking about Greta Thunberg. Only you could be like disavowed by a razor company, but yet he remains the nicest guy you've ever met, you know, and it's just, he's so nice. And when you meet him, you're like, how did this happen? You know, why were you burning effigy? Like, what's happened to you? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. It's like I think it was my father was asking me, "Oh, is Michael Knowles is the Daily Wire guy that did the ongoing interviews with Cruz, right? Ted Cruz." And I was like, "Yes." He was like, "Yeah, he's very sincere, very crisp, very polished, but seems very down to earth." I was like, "You nailed it. Yeah, he's a very very nice man, a little bit like Jimmy Stewart reborn in the late
Yeah.
20th century or something like that, and a bit sharper. But yeah, I wasn't trying to bring up Knowles aside from the fact that we were, it's absolutely the nail on the head to say that Michael Knowles is a absolutely sincere, delightful person. What you see is what you get. But he really does need to start going by MK Ultra. And we just found out when
Yeah.
he introduced us the other day, I was like, I called him MK Ultra. I was like, thanks, MK Ultra. And you were like, yo, I call him that too, man. I was like, let's go. I love this guy. I already love this guy.
We're going to rebrand his show for him. He doesn't know it yet.
Yes. Yes, we will. Well, so um is the world ending, George? I mean, we have a brand new sort of reoriented political consensus in America. The right wing is re-embraced, at least on the internet, um, Christendom. There seems to be hell breaking loose between Israel and Iran. People are converting to Roman Catholicism in mass waves. The jig seems to be sort of up with Christianity Light, American Protestantism, and it just seems like we're getting ready for the Perusia. Have I overstated it, or is it just that our republic here is in collapse?
That's a nice, easy question to, come in on. Is the world ending? I think, look, only the Father knows when the last day will be. Is our world changing dramatically? Yes. Is kind of the era of the neoliberal secular humanist over? Yes. And will that in turn entail some pretty seismic changes in the way that our political class and civilization are put together? Yes. Really what we've been living through is kind of like the last 250 years have been this sort of post-enlightenment kind of Nietzschean world where, effectively everyone's a Nietzsche, like everyone's a follower of Nietzsche nowadays, but they don't know it. If you said that to the most, they would have no idea who he is. But the kind of idea of God is dead, and therefore morality is just a question of personal preference, is so ingrained in people's minds now that 250 years after the Enlightenment began, or call it 300 years, whatever, how many years you want to put it down, but basically this period where morality has been slowly chipped away at now has caused the kind of, now we're at a point where it can no longer be ignored. If you wound it back 100 years, if you wound it back 60 years, there were kind of gains which everyone could try and pull to themselves. Like, okay, do we think women should have the vote? Well, there's a moral argument for it. And like, yeah, of course, we want enfranchisement of everybody, and sexual revolution. Well, sexual revolution, well, sex should be free. And, of course, there's all these false ideals which are put forward, but it could bring people along with it. Those ideals could bring people along with it, in part because they entailed greater personal freedom or perceived personal freedom, which meant that people bought into them. But now in 2024, what are the personal gains being had by people? Well, there's virtually none. There's no personal gains being gotten anymore. Like, you're talking about a very small minority who are gaining some, kind of what I would describe as perverted kind of freedoms in many ways. Like, the idea that you can wear another person's clothes and all this kind of stuff. It's just, it's nonsense for most people. And so as a result, we're reaching the end of kind of the string with how much people are willing to tolerate. And so right now, the question has returned to pre-enlightenment. It's it's gone all the way back, and we're now going, okay, like what is objective truth? And so, and like, not to pull in too many different themes here because I don't want to get too kind of like go down too many holes on the first question, but you can see in Western, like in Europe, this question in some ways is more advanced than in the United States. And in Europe, like in the UK and in secular Europe, which is even more secular than America, the radicalization of particularly young men is well advanced with Islam. And so people have been suffering this objective truth conundrum question. Like they've been suffering from the starvation of objective truth, if you want to call it that. And so they've found a belief system which corresponds to strength. And they're like, okay, well, we're drawn to this because Islam appears as strong, because it's a militant religion, which, you know, advances jihad as one of the 5 pillars. And so, you know, you have this militancy, which is corresponding with Islam. And so they're drawn to that. And so kind of the starvation of objective truth has already resulted in people of a particular age and, you know, normally men in Europe being drawn to this. And of course, that's compounded by having, you know, mass waves of uncontrolled migration from the Islamic world. But then over here, you know, across the Western world, you're seeing the starvation of objective truth result in people being like, okay, we need to figure out what's going on. And we need to have some questions around our kind of liberal neo-secular society, which is now in its kind of final days and last gasps.
Excellent answer. Are you familiar with the Miyagi complex that I've described in other places? What I call Miyagi complex?
I've refreshed my memory. I've heard it mentioned before, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, so there's an interreligious and broader ecumenical Miyagi complex. It's like in Karate Kid, if a young white kid who's grown up fatherless, Pope Benedict XVI says that Western civilization now in its decline is marked by absconding fathers. Of course, we all know this is true. All great art has to deal with this in some way now, absconding fathers. Fathers either running away outright or standing down, while mothers standing up and leaning in and all that bullshit. Well, the only strong father figure that a young pale-faced kid, a young white kid in Western civilization, Europe or America, can possibly fathom is like a foreign-looking face, Mr. Miyagi, an Oriental face. And this is true at the level of both patriarchy, which has been collapsed in America, and it's also true at the level of religion. So what do we call it? Judeo-Buddhism. My friend Royce White calls it Judeo-Buddhism, what's in movies and rap music and rock music. You know, Buddhism is taken by the Judaists who run Hollywood and things to represent the deepest, most meditative epistemic state that a human being can reach, right? That's the best it gets. That's the deepest it gets. My friend's a Buddhist. He's really deep. That's Daniel's son looking to Mr. Miyagi, and this is the paragon of wisdom, right? And even in Christendom, if we say, okay, take it to Christendom, we know that's the truth. Christianity is true. Buddhism's false. It's made up. It's essentially a nihilist philosophy. It's kind of stupid. It's for stoners and movie producers. But Christendom's the true thing. Even within Christendom, I always caution Protestants who are fleeing Protestantism because they want something truer and deeper. And obviously that's Catholicism and Orthodoxy, the true aspect of Christianity that can be called church. Well, there's an inbuilt bias in the 21st century where your wife, Candace, had said she was looking toward Orthodoxy. And I was like, avoid intra-Christendom Miyagi complex, where you're looking Eastern Orthodoxy. And there is something beautiful about their spirituality. I mean, the Desert Fathers are ours and theirs because it's part of our shared patrimony of the apophaticism, the mysticism, the 3 M's of Christianity. Mysticism, martyrdom, monasticism are more closely associated with Eastern Orthodoxy, but it's both of ours. I don't want fleeing Protestants to be caught up in intra-Christendom Miyagi complex by going orthodoxy, just because we all have that inbuilt assumption from Roman Catholicism's failure to articulate its embarrassment of riches, and from Western civilization, as Pope Benedict XVI said, going through these three central moments of dehellenization over the last 500 years where we're embarrassed about it. So all this goes to say, I was super pleased Candace chose Catholicism over Eastern Orthodoxy.